and the growers that it's intending to, and also that it's maintaining the integrity of products. So to determine this membership, we felt that there are several terms that are going to need to be defined. And this is something that we'll be touching on again in this presentation, but also Jonathan and I are going to be kind of talking about this later in the day. So we're looking at probably trying to find a definition for small and mid-size, sustainable, local or regional, and fair. This is a very big task. I'm now going to go into some of the various functions that we think that a regional food hub network can provide. And one of the major functions is coordinating regional food supplies. This is a Southern California example. Sorry for all of the Northern California folks. So basically because, for example, Los Angeles has a very large population but very few agricultural resources, San Diego would be considered a part of its food shed. And the San Diego hub, if it has surplus product, would want to send it to Los Angeles and maybe a variety of other places, and the hubs throughout the state would network something like that. And the network's role in this is that they would facilitate these exchanges by providing information about product availability and logistics and things like that. So not owning the product, but just providing information and facilitating the whole process, especially for smaller hubs that don't really have the capacity to do that themselves, and kind of bring them all onto the same level. And we're calling this process inter-hub brokerage. The network would also potentially coordinate the use of underutilized infrastructure that could be shared. This is an example from the Ojai Pixie Growers using the packing house. Trucking and logistics between hubs that could increase efficiency. And also cross-docking, or a place for food to land once it's delivered. So the network could also provide its members with several types of services and supports. These might include cost sharing, including insurance, safety certifications, information systems, marketing and advertising, logistics services, equipment and materials, fundraising, identifying funding sources, grant writing assistance, and demonstrating network-wide need for funds on a larger scale, so that could even potentially influence funding streams as well. Trainings, having sales and management trainings and new farmer trainings, maybe various other types of job trainings as well. And also networking, holding regular meetings so that all of these people that are working on similar projects can have a chance to get to know one another, and ideally down the road hosting an annual conference. Another major function that the network could provide is marketing. The idea is basically to communicate to customers what it means to buy from a regional food hub that is a member of the network. And in order for any type of this marketing to be meaningful, we're back to the definitions again, the network would first have to define its values. And some of the values that we think the network and the member regional food hubs would probably like to promote are supporting small and mid-sized farmers. So when a customer buys a product from one of these regional food hubs, they know that it's something that is supporting this group of farmers. Local, this is a big one. So it's our recommendation that that of course local mean it comes from within the state, but rather than trying to hash out a definition of local that changes depending on region, depending on mileage and food shed, we'd actually suggest that that we really focus on transparency and traceability. So the network's role would be to make sure that customers have access to information about exactly where products came from, and then they can make the judgment call themselves whether or not they think is local. And then the wider marketing campaign could just be a campaign that emphasizes the needs, that the closer the food is, the better. And then the network might also want to support fair labor practices, improved access to good food in all communities, and sustainable growing practices. And again, these are all terms that would somehow need to be defined to really take on a meaning that this brand or label would have. And the network could also participate in incubating new programs and technologies and pilots. These are essentially other hub functions, sort of how I mentioned before, some additional functions that can be associated with the hub. So we broke these innovations into two categories, marketing innovations and access innovations. These are just some ideas of things that could happen. Traceability innovation, for example. This technology already exists. It's a smartphone application that could read a barcode and then tell you a bunch of information about a farmer, but it's not being used, to the best of my knowledge, as much by smaller farms. So this could, it could have pictures of farmers, things like that, and it could be a really great marketing tool. Coordinated buying programs. This would probably involve an institutional customer, in which case the hubs are actually growing for a larger customer. On-site retail and grocery. Access innovations, on-site food assistance offices, farm-to-school programs. San Diego is working on developing a very strong farm-to-school program currently. And then this is another one that we're sort of looking at for the emerging Los Angeles regional food hub, is fresh food mobile vending, kind of like they have in New York. This is a picture from the Green Cart program in New York, but where a fleet of green carts could load up at the regional food hub and then go out into underserved areas throughout the city and really have a much greater impact in terms of food access. Okay, and research and information sharing is another major function that the Regional Food Hub Network would probably be taking on. This overlaps with a lot of other ones, but it would probably include gathering information on member hub sales and logistics, needs of various regions that are specific to those regions, innovations and best practices, and ideally the results of gathering all of this information would be that it facilitates basically all of the other network functions, but really putting a lot of emphasis on gathering this information and making it accessible, informing outreach and capacity building, and then streamlining regional food hubs' path to success, and measuring statewide progress in terms of actually moving forward with this. So it's not just something that happens in a vacuum. There's actually really a reference point for the development of a strong regional food system. And finally, our last function, we have policy advocacy. That basically is what it sounds like. The network could develop a policy platform that advocates for policies, laws, and regulations that are beneficial to its members. Okay, we're doing it's one of the first implementation steps. Okay, we're good on time? Great, I can go into this whole thing. As one of our first steps in implementation, many of us on the advisory council kind of wondered what a regional food hub network might look like. And so we developed a mapping study using GIS that would illustrate regional food hub network vision, map agricultural assets in the state, identify target outreach locations, map existing regional food hub projects, and finally compare existing projects to the study results to see if there's gaps or just kind of figure out what the takeaways would be from that. So in this study, we noticed a distinction between urban regional food hubs that cater primarily to consumers, and we're calling these demand hubs, and more rural regional food hubs that primarily aggregate products, and these are aggregation hubs. So we first looked into what might be good demand hub locations. We decided that because everyone should have access to nutritious and locally produced food, that demand hubs should be defined by population. So this map shows, oh, it's very long, California population by county. The darker areas have higher populations, and it also highlights urban centers with populations over 300,000. So those are the very dark spots. We also thought that transportation infrastructure was critical to placing a regional food hub somewhere. So we also mapped